Welcome to the podcast about investing in startups, where existing investors can learn how to get the best deal possible. And those that have never before invested in startups can learn the keys to success from the venture experts. Your host is Nick Moran, and this is The Full Ratchet.
Welcome back to TFR for another edition of Investor Stories. On this segment, the experts talk about a startup that failed and the causes of that failure. Here's the segment called Post-Mortems.
On today's special segment, we have Jeff Clavier of Uncork Capital. Jeff, can you tell us a story about a portfolio company that failed and why it failed?
We've had, tens of companies sort of scale and fail. I think the one I still remember, because I still sort of mention it often, is Fab. So Fab.com was one of our portfolio companies in Fund 3. If you recall, Fab was this e-commerce platform that was selling pretty awesome, edgy, well sort of curated items for household and furniture and eventually sort of clothes.
That's right.
And it was a rocket ship. They grew from zero to $1 billion in valuation in a couple of years. And then a year later, they were dead. The reason why is that they tried to sort of scale very, very fast. And at the end of the day, they scaled too fast without paying attention to unit economics. And what I learned personally is that if it feels too good to be true, it typically is, right? So if you don't understand how something can scale that fast, really dig into the unit economics. And when I hear claims about, some companies scaling like super fast, then this one or the other or whatever, and you just look at their cash burn, well, negative gross margin is pretty simple. You just spend more than the service you develop,
yeah.
And basically you pay people to use it. And
there's a lot of that going on, though.
There's a lot of that going on. And, sometimes it's okay. You decide to sort of take that risk and scale faster and use capital as a weapon. And certainly with the SoftBank Vision Fund writing $500 million checks, there's a lot of that going on. But at the end of the day, building real companies and real businesses is based on sustainable unit economics. And we'll have to see how those companies sort of fare. And, it's even a question for Lyft and Uber, right? If you look at their S1s, the scale is incredible. The speed at which they got to that scale is incredible. But, oh my God, they're burning cash. And not everything naturally sort of lends to sustainable economics.
On today's special segment, we have Bradley Tusk of Tusk Ventures. Bradley, can you tell us a story about a portfolio company that failed and why it failed?
Yeah, so luckily, we've invested in 15 companies so far. None have gone out of business yet. So
very good.
So that's really good news. Obviously, we're still only a year out from our final close of Fund 1, so I am sure we'll have some BKs sooner than later. But in terms of companies that we at least worked with and took equity in return for our work, there's been a few different things. I mentioned the story of MyTable earlier, which is it was an unbelievably hard regulatory problem. I was really arrogant in thinking that we could solve this thing single-handedly. The company just didn't have nearly enough runway to be able to survive all these political fights and break through the other side of it. And I learned that lesson the hard way, especially because a lot of it was against the advice of my own team, who said, this can't work, you can't win. And I didn't listen to them, and I paid the price for that. There have been other examples where we've had a concept like that we thought was interesting, but ultimately it had some of the same flaws as EdTech. So, for example, we were in a company called Patient Bank, and they were about kind of a better way to do health records. But ultimately what they needed us for was kind of access to big public hospitals and health institutions. And those are no less bureaucratic than school districts, for example. And same thing, Patient Bank just couldn't get enough sales off the ground fast enough to stay in business. And so we've learned different lessons that way. And we've also learned sometimes just more about founders, right? For a long time, the only founder I knew was Travis Kalanick, and he is, whether you like him or don't like him, he's an outlier, right? You can't really base your views on founders on Travis, right? And this guy I spent like so much time with. It's like one person I know incredibly well. And so I think over time, we got much better through pattern recognition as figuring out kind of which founders are full of shit, which ones aren't. And also, in some ways for us, who knows what they don't know? I know I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but in order for me to be effective, I want your opinion and everything, but you got to trust that I understand government and politics and understand it a lot better than you do. and at the very least need the freedom to be able to explore everything and come to you with our advice, with our recommendations, and have them taken seriously. And most of the time, that's how founders do treat us. But there are times we've learned that, they don't, and they kind of assume that because they're really smart, they get politics too. And we're trying to spot those earlier and earlier and just avoid working with them in the first place.
Interesting. On today's special segment, we have Scott Kupor of Andreessen Horowitz. Scott, can you tell us a story about a portfolio company that failed and why it failed?
Yeah. Let me tell you a story, and I'm going to not give you the name of the company only because we love all of our children, of course, and so I don't want to unfairly hurt anybody. But here's a common failure case, and one that we did before, which is, look, great team, really interesting idea. We think there's a great market opportunity, and for a variety of reasons, the product just never took. So, this was a consumer product. And, they never quite could get to what I would call kind of pure product market fit, where the customers said, okay, like there's enough customers who say, I'm actually willing to pay for this and change my behavior to do it. And, it was an unfortunate one. It ultimately got sold. We probably, got about 70, 80 cents on the dollar back on the investment. But to me, it's a common failure case, which I think is actually just part and parcel of the business. And we've talked about this particular deal that I'm thinking about many times, and said, hey, we would probably invest again with knowing the same things that we knew at the same time, because it was a classic venture bet. And it just happens that sometimes, you talked about markets earlier, sometimes, kind of bad markets, kind of just can defeat great teams, no matter how good of a team you have. We do our best to try to kind of understand that, but, that's unfortunately, kind of par for the course. But I'd say that's kind of one big failure case. The other big failure case to us is products working, markets there, but, kind of the team is just actually not executing operationally the way they need to. And that might mean that they have the wrong kind of go-to-market, or, they haven't kind of, stewarded their cash in a way that makes sense. Those are the most frustrating ones, because you got it right in the sense that you picked a good market, you picked a good product to go attack that market, yet the team just hasn't been able to do what they need to do. Those, I would say, are more frustrating than the former category, because it feels like it's eminently in your control to fix those things. And sometimes if you get to them, early enough, you can. But, it's frustrating when, kind of that aspect of the business, kind of the team and the organizational structure and the kind of scaling of the business just doesn't keep pace with what the opportunity set is in the market.
Are there heuristics or anything you've been able to tease out at the team level early on in selection that, may help avoid some of those bets that don't work out?
Yeah, we kind of think about it in two ways. One is kind of what is the, you've heard of product market fit, obviously.
Yep.
We think of kind of the concept of the founder market fit. So kind of what is it that makes this team uniquely suited to this environment that, really sets them apart? My partner, Chris Dixon, uses the term earned secret. And, obviously the secret part is, okay, is there something they know that no one else knows? And the earned part is, how did they get it, right? So, did they just magically, they read it in a book someday, or was it kind of part of, their earned life journey of trying to solve various problems that ultimately led them to this? And so we try to kind of isolate, kind of founder market fit in that respect. And then I would say the other piece is the kind of, which we talked about a little bit about, the more leadership aspects of being a great team, which is, can you tell a great story? Can you find ways to articulate the vision that causes people to want to quit their jobs and come work for you, or causes a customer to take an incredible amount of risk and be willing to kind of, try you out when the safe choice is for them not to do so? Can you clearly articulate how you're going to incorporate market feedback into the product in a way that doesn't make you kind of flip-floppy, but that does recognize that, these are ever-evolving markets that will need kind of constant change. So those are kind of what I would call the more, leadership and kind of, CEO-like skill sets versus kind of the fitness relative to the market opportunity you're going after.
The more we talk, the more I'm realizing how much I've learned from you guys over the years. I mean, in one of our deal memo areas, we call it the authenticity of the secret.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Which is similar, very similar, just the nomenclature's a bit different.
That will conclude this installment of Investor Stories. If you're enjoying the program and would like to see it continue, take a moment and leave a 5-star review in iTunes. Also, if you'd like updates on new content from TFR, as well as the top 10 VC articles every week, go to fullratchet.net and sign up for the newsletter. Okay, that will wrap things up for today. Until next time, over-prepare, choose carefully, and invest confidently. Thanks for joining me.